Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. And we are joined by former Capitals trainer and now former Washington football, interim trainer, Greg Smith. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Great, Smitty. Great to talk to you, man. This is awesome.
Thanks for doing this. And Ron Rivera at his final news conference actually name dropped you as kind of filling in for their ridiculous situation where they got the trainer the place raided by the DEA and administrative leave. What was that whole experience like for you working in the NFL and not the
NHL? First and foremost, Ron Rivera was the guy who convinced me to make that 76 mile drive from my house to the Ashburn. You know, I talked to Ron about 3 times on the phone, and he just seemed like a genuine, nice guy. Like he's just, you know, I've worked for a lot of coaches and Karl knows this, some good, some not so good, some kind of ridiculous expectations and stuff like that. But Ron was just such a good guy. We connected right away over the phone. And, you know, I can't say enough about the guy. Of course, you know, the season didn't end like anybody wanted it to. And we could talk about the whys and the what. But the NFL it's a lot different. It's unbelievable to be at your house every night, you know, for the whole week. Like, it's crazy. Like, that was the first thing that I was like, man, like, so you basically you're at home all the time, except for, you know, Saturday, and then you go play somewhere on Sunday. That's it.
And you're back. Yeah.
And then you're back. It's easy. Like, the travel is incredibly easy. But when you're talking about athletes, you know, I've worked with NBA guys since I've retired. I did a little bit of a stint at University of Maryland to help them out when the player passed away. And, you know, so since I've retired from hockey, I've had a couple different opportunities to work with, you know, D1 athletes, some NBA guys, and now NFL guys. And you know, by far, of course, hockey is my favorite because I connected with them for so many years. But the athletes are all the same, right? They're trying to get better. They're trying to make themselves better, and they're trying to, you know, provide a living for their family, which is, you know, it's an easy time to connect with folks that want to do that stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trainer, the travel schedule. That's why a lot of colleagues of mine who want to have families, they go from hockey to football. Because, like, if you want to have a family at home, it's so much easier if you're writing, you're covering a team, that you are home 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because you know, I got a lot of questions from those guys, you know, on the team, and they're kind of, well, what's hockey like? What's this? I'm like, guys, you guys have no idea. It's 82 game schedule. Like, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And 42 of those are on the road. What? I'm like, yeah. And then home games, we actually practice in the morning and then go to the rink at night. So you're basically, I'd leave my house on the game day for the Caps. I'd leave my house at, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning, get to the rink around 7. And I was there from 7, you know, at Arlington. And then midday, I'd leave Arlington, drive downtown, play the game. And then I'd get home around 12 o'clock at night. So you're not really home for those 42 games either. So it was funny. I traveled with them, you know, just a couple games. But, you know, when it came down to the game with Dallas, you know, the day after Christmas, they're like, hey, do you want to go? I'm like, want to go? No, I've spent enough time in the hotel. I don't need to fly again. Thank you. No. So I didn't go on that game. So I stayed at home. So big difference. Big difference.
Yeah,
I mean,
so would you rather, though? So you were saying to us earlier that you had to wake up at 4. Was it leave your house at 4?
Yeah, I woke up and I was out the house by 4:30.
4:30. So so going an entire season, having to do that and battling traffic on the way home versus going through a whole hockey season, which one do you think is you think it's still tougher doing hockey?
No, I take hockey over NFL any day. And here's why. Okay. Hockey has a start and an end to every day, right? We
Yeah.
have practice, and then, before practice, you have treatments, you have practice, and then after practice, you have treatments. Done.
Mhm.
In the NFL, we get there, we might not start meetings until 8 o'clock, but we're there at 6 o'clock for 2 hours before in case somebody wants to come in for treatment. And then you're there for meetings. So you're hitting guys when they're available. Then you have practice. And then they have meetings upon meetings upon meetings after practice. And you're just basically waiting around for guys to show up.
Yeah.
And so, the training room's open from basically 6 to 5 every day, 6 in the morning to 5 at night every day. So the days are
Crazy.
longer, but there's some downtimes where you're just like, holy moly, like hopefully somebody will walk in and we can treat them. You know what I mean? Like, so and then next thing you know, the meetings will let out and you'll have 20 guys on top of you. And then
Yeah.
30 minutes later, the next meeting starts and your room's empty. So it's just a weird kind of, you can't get into a flow. Like with hockey, there was a flow, right? There was a start, a finish, and an end. There, it's just like all day.
Yeah. And going back to it, I remember, I think it was when Ovi scored his 500th goal, maybe, and he posted a picture of you and him together with a really nice caption, just saying, like, none of this can be done without guys like you behind the scenes, and no one ever sees it because, it's crazy to think, like, the athlete goes to the rink and, like you said, we do our meetings, we get on the ice, we get treatment when we need it, but then the whole time we don't see what's going on to make that work for us. And you guys are there, like you said, all day long, waiting for somebody to come in, and then all of a sudden when they want something, they want it now, and your day is just like, it's just turned upside down like that when all of a sudden you got 5 guys complaining about who's on the table and they want to get on the table and all that. So it's just one of those things that fans and even players don't understand it. Like, you guys can't get out of the rink until we've taken all of our undergear off, like Woody or whoever.
Yep.
So we can go into the wash and all that. And these days are it's just crazy how long they are. So I think it's just nice thinking back to what Ovi posted there, and just to get a little bit of recognition, because the job that you guys do is absolutely wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's funny too, because I'm at the point in my life where I don't necessarily have to do it, but I really enjoy treating athletes. Like, I like it. You know what I mean? So for me, it's I enjoy that aspect. So that's why going back to the NFL was kind of nice, because like that's the part of the job I like. Like, I don't like the administrative part, you know what I mean, and pushing papers and doing all that other stuff. I just like treating. So this gave me that opportunity just to treat the guys, you know what I mean? And Carl, you remember the playing days. I hated doing paperwork, man. I hated the office like nobody's business, you know what I mean? Like, that was the worst part of the job,
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and you're also a type of guy that likes to learn. Like, you're one of the smartest people I've met, and I think you always like to gain more and more knowledge. So I think that's pretty cool, and that makes sense why you would have an opportunity to work with a football team and just even learn a little bit more. But like you said too, you don't need to continue to do this, but you obviously have a thirst for for a new experience and learning something. And I think that's pretty cool. And we've talked about over your whole time that I was there with Washington and your business pivot, like, that's something that you also have going on behind the scenes, on top of what you're doing with the team. And I'm curious what that's been like too. Are you still involved with Pivot? And maybe explain that to us a little bit.
Yeah. So it's funny that you ask. About 2 weeks ago, Pivot sold to another healthcare company called Athletico. So there's going to be a transaction first part of February. They'll take ownership over a company. So we were able to merge our two companies together to make the largest outpatient physical therapy company in the U.S. that's privately owned. So
Wow.
it's been a great journey on that, and I got into that, as is I got into that because I just wasn't really happy with the way physical therapy was run. In sports, we're really paid to make guys better faster, and when we got to physical therapy, the model is you get a patient in, and if it's a 4 to 6 week prescription, that's how long you had to be at physical therapy, which didn't make sense to me. I figured that we could make guys better faster and get them back to there, and we've had some success to do that. So yeah, so
Wow.
I'm kind of involved, but in the next couple of weeks, my involvement will unwind to the point where who knows what I'll be doing when I grow up.
So you're a free agent again, is what you're saying.
Free agent again. Yeah.
That's
So who knows what
amazing.
I'm going to do? Yeah. So it's
Congrats, man. Where's the
Thank you.
vacation planned after that celebration?
First and foremost, I don't like the vacation. So, because then all I do is stress out about all the stuff I want to do when I'm home.
Yeah.
So that's not really a vacation for me. So who knows? I'm just trying to look. I'm building a house now in Stevensville, which is right across the Bay Bridge. So I'm hopefully going to try to be moving boxes and stuff like that. And I'm so cheap that I do it myself. I don't hire a moving crew. So, you know what I mean? Because why do that? Why not break my back and do it myself? So, yeah.
Exactly. That's
can't
exactly how I
change.
messed up. No,
Yeah.
you can't. Exactly. That's why there's a saying about old dogs.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I messed up my back when I was in Hershey moving. Well, playing first and then moving right after that. Just did it in. So,
Yeah.
but you go ahead, do it if you want to do it. But just call me. Call me if you need a little bit of help.
Yeah. For sure.
That's amazing.
One of my favorite
wanted
things
to-
of having guests on here is asking a favorite Carl Alsner story. The problem is Carl's such a model citizen that no one has any bad stories. But how much of a pain in the ass was Carl to deal with, Smitty?
Well, see, that's the problem. It wasn't a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? Carl was always good. The only issue him and I had, and he'll remember the story better than I did, but one day he was really banged up, but he was going for the Ironman streak, and we had to work on how to keep him in the lineup because he was so banged up. And I can't remember who the coach was at the time, but wanted him to sit out a game. And I have the coach going, "Hey, we're going to sit him out tonight." And I have Carl going, No, I'm playing." And the coach, "No, let's sit him out. He's banged up." No, I'm playing. I'm like, I was basically pinballing between the training room, the coach's room, the training room, the coach's room. He said he can go. No, I want him to sit out. Okay, let me go talk to him. The coach wants you to sit out. Yeah, but I'm fine. Like this, I'll show you I'm fine. He ended up playing. The streak continued. You know what I mean? But but there was a lot of injuries between that streak that he probably could have taken the night off, and nobody would have thought the difference. But Carl was one of those guys that just wanted to play, and we ended up doing it.
I think that was the time when we were in Montreal. I took a slap shot from David Desharnais, broke my thumb. And then the next game we were in Winnipeg, and because I couldn't really grip the stick and snap it the way you normally would, I'd have to use more upper body. And then I strained my oblique, and I remember having to go back to the dressing room to try and get a quick tune up and some Tylenol, and then came back out to finish the third period. I remember that, and that was a tough one. But we did have one rule with that. I don't know if you even remember it, but I always would say, because we have we called it the Road Warrior streak, or I think that's what we called it. But if a trainer had to come out on the ice to help you off the ice, then you lost your warrior card. And I remember always saying, I need to be knocked out cold for you to step on that ice. Please don't ever set foot on that ice because I don't want anyone to see that.
That got me in trouble my first day at the Redskins.
Oh, really?
Sorry, the Washington Football Club.
They'll be the Commanders soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, or whatever they're going to be.
Whatever.
So a player went down in practice, right? Okay.
Not a game.
So,
Not a game. Not a game.
yeah. So a guy went down in practice. And I didn't think it was a big hit. Well, you know what I mean? I'm just standing there. Everybody's screaming at me, and I'm like, well, don't you want to see if he wants to get up? But apparently, I didn't know this, right? This is why I like to go work other sports, right? You learn different way of things going. If a player goes down on the field, doesn't matter. The trainer sprints across the field. Okay. Now, if you notice, I never went on the field. I never went on the field during the game because I was like, there's no way I'm sprinting across the thing. Because if any of the Caps players saw that, they're going to call me and go, well, why'd you do it for them? Oh, you like football better than us because, I'd literally, why not? I'd stand on the bench and be like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippis. Like, come on, you got to get up, because the worst case scenario is, and Karl knows, like, I'd go all the way across the ice. And as soon as I got there, the guy would pop up. I'm like, no. If I make it on the ice, you're just going to, like, you know what I mean? Like we're not doing that, you know what I mean? And do it. So it was different. I learned a good, valuable lesson. I'm like, oh, okay. So if a player just like stumbles and falls down, I'm supposed to run on the field and see if he's okay. They're like, yeah, basically. I'm like, all right, I can do this. So
who would you say of all the guys that would go down in hockey that you would always be like, he's fine, he's just making a show of it? Do you have a guy that comes to mind?
See, you're set. I know, because you're setting me up for this one. You know exactly who I'm going to say.
I have a guess. You don't even have to, Alex Semin was always the guy who went down, and we would be like, "What's going on here?" And then he would pop up, and all of a sudden be okay.
Yeah, that was the guy that I would have in mind too. Yeah. And Karl, you remember the time when he went down on the ice? It was right before intermission, and Glenn Hanlon was our coach, and he goes down on the ice, and he got hit in between the pockets. Okay, let's put it to you that way, right? Because this is a family show. Okay, so he goes down. Somebody, speared him, and he goes down right in between. And Glenn Hanlon looks at me and goes, "Don't you F-bomb?
You can say
go
it.
on that ice." I'm like, are you sure? So the period just ended, right? And he's still laying on the ice, right? And he's still laying on the ice. All the people go into the locker room. I'm still standing on the bench. The Zamboni starts coming out. He's still laying on the ice. Finally, he gets up and comes in. Finally. And I was just like, this is embarrassing. And I think we're on the road too. And I'm sitting there going, man, all these fans are in the stands going, what is the matter with that guy? He's just standing there looking at him. But, you know what I mean? Like the coach was like, don't go on the ice. Because back in the day, I think I would go on the ice, twice a game for him? Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it got ridiculous there. And of course, as he got older, it got a little better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A little better, not normal, but a little better. So
yeah. That's amazing. Quick Alex Semin story. This is one of my favorite things, and you would know this too. So it was no secret that he didn't enjoy doing interviews. He didn't enjoy really speaking.
He acted like he didn't speak English at all.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And I remember one time specifically, it was after practice, and I had to get out of the rink early for some reason, and Semin he always got out of the rink early for his reasons. And I'm in the shower. He comes in, And I look over and I see, oh, it's Alex. I'm not really going to be talking. I'm not going to be saying anything. And then all of a sudden he just goes, "Hey, Halsey, what's up?" And I kind of like turn around, like, what? Who was that? And I look and it's him. I'm like, "Oh, nothing, Sasha. Like, what's going on with you?" He's like, "Nothing. I just got to go and I got to get my boat. We're going fishing with my buddies today." And I'm like, didn't know what to say. I'm like, I never heard him speak that much English before. I had no idea he enjoyed fishing and had a boat. And apparently on majority of his days off, and when he had time and his buddies were in town, they would go fishing all the time. He had like a Toyota Tundra, like he drove to the rink in this like $100,000+ Mercedes, but he had a Toyota Tundra that he'd drive around with his boat, I guess, to go fishing all the time. And it's one of those things that, like, I don't know, it made him a little bit more relatable and so funny that he can speak pretty much perfect English, but would never do it around anybody. So no one would talk to him.
Yeah, remember the time where, and I forget the baseball player, but there was one of these baseball players signed this huge deal back in the day. And Alex was walking by the training room and he just looks up at the TV and he turns to all of us. We didn't even know he could speak. And he was like, "Oh, wow." It was like 7 years, 100 and whatever $1 million or whatever that contract was. And he just looks at the TV and goes, "Huh, that's $9.75 million a year." Like he did the math really quick. And we're all like, not only stunned
Wow.
that he could speak English, he heard what, you know what I mean, understood what they were
Yeah.
talking about. And he did the math like this, like it was like it just popped up and like,
Yeah.
and he just kept on walking and we're all like what just happened? Like,
Hidden
did that
talent.
just what? And it was crazy.
Yeah. No,
Oh.
he was a very interesting guy. Wino, I got to tell you, one of my favorite Greg Smith stories that I can remember is we were in Colorado one time. I still have the picture of it. And we come into the rink. There was a few of us that would always come in pretty early, me, Carly, Chimera. And we step into the rink and we come into the trainer's room because it's usually the first thing that we do. Like we spent a lot of time with these guys. And so we come in the rink and there's Smitty sitting on the table with this bruise the size of a basketball on his quad.
Oh yeah.
He's got the duoson on. You're duosoning yourself and you look so miserable. I remember taking a picture of you and I'm pretty sure I distributed it to the rest of the team so that they could witness what was going on. But do you even remember what happened there?
Yeah. So it was during a snowstorm, right? And we got to the hotel and so it was snowing outside and we couldn't go underneath the little canopy. So it was snowing. So I hopped off the bus to help the driver unload the bus with all the bags. And he goes to open up one of the doors and it falls off the hinges and the bus door came down on my quad because I'm like, as it's coming up, I'm stepping into the bus to go underneath the bus and the whole door came down and just crushed my quad. Just crushed my quad. And
That's
I'm
a heavy
like,
door.
Yeah. And I was like, that's so dumb. Like, what was I thinking? This is why I should never help. This is why.
Yeah.
And
You-
I mean, it was like half the size of my car. It was so black and blue. The next day,
Yeah.
I was like, I got to go to the rink and treat it. Of course, I didn't know the guys would come over that early. You know what I mean? Because, you have to keep that shit, on the down low. You got to keep it quiet.
You can't have a trainer needing medical attention.
No. It's like when I was with the Anaheim Ducks, we're in Edmonton, and Carl, remember how tight the old Edmonton rink was, the bench was for us to stand behind the players? Like
Yes.
you're basically, your knee is in the guy's back. That's how close it is. Well, there's a face-off right in front, and the face-off goes back to a defenseman named Freddie Olesen. And Freddie tees it up and tries to hit it off the boards, misses the boards by about a couple inches, and just smokes me right in the jaw. And I broke my zygomatic arch in the first period. And I ended up, I didn't go down, and you know what I mean? Luckily, You know what I mean? I was okay, and I just stayed out for the game
Jeez.
and stuff like that. But I couldn't open my jaw, so I knew the jaw was broken. So I convinced the coach to have the day off the next day. It was Super Bowl Sunday. I was like, Coach, like Craig Hartsburg was our coach back then. And I was like, Hartsy, we got to have Super Bowl Sunday off. He goes, no, I think we should practice. Guys will be drinking during the Super Bowl. We'll practice in the morning and then let them off in the afternoon to watch the Super Bowl. That way they'd get a little bit of sweat in and stuff like that. And I was like, no, we're not going to have a trainer there tomorrow because I got to go have surgery on my jaw. So I ended up having surgery on my jaw on Super Bowl Sunday, and we had the day off, and then I went back to work on Monday. So,
Did you get wired shut or no?
No, it's just they just popped that part of it out. You know what I mean? And they went through my ear to do it, so it was good. So I just couldn't touch.
Louise.
I couldn't touch my face for 6 months. They wanted me to wear this plastic shield, and I was like, like Phantom of the Opera. And I was like, dude, like, there's no way. Like, I'll run the risk. I'll do the surgery twice, but there's no way I'm gonna wear a shield. Kind of like that. Were you there with the game where we made Brooks Lake wear that shield because he broke his jaw, and he got so mad. He got so mad because he missed the pass. He tried to rip off the shield. He's banging it on the ground. He's trying to rip it off, and so and I was like, Brooksy, you can't play. And Brooksy was kind of a little animated back then, and he was like, I'm playing. I'm like, no, you're not playing unless you have a shield on. I mean, one little shot, this thing's going to go haywire. I said, you're not playing. And so I told the coach, I forgot who the coach was back then, but the coach was like, hey, look, you got to put the shield on or not. So he goes back into the locker room and grabs the helmet he just destroyed. And the shield's like this swinging back and forth on his visor. And he's like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, no, you're not. You need to go get the shield off. He was so mad. Oh, he was living.
That's hilarious. That was Bruce, I think, was the coach then, and that happened because I think Carly took a shot in practice, right? It ricocheted off the crossbar, hit him in the face. Yeah, I remember that. That's crazy. Freak accident. Speaking of freak accidents, is there a moment that comes to your mind where someone got hurt and it was like almost scary for you, or something that you were just like, thank God that got discovered, or that got fixed, or anything that comes to mind? I have something that comes to my mind, but I don't know if it like it registered with me. I'm not sure if it registered the same with you.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard because, I mean, not to say anything, even if you remember back in the day where we had were you there where the guy had that aortic aneurysm at the rink right before practice?
No, I don't think so.
So a guy that worked at Kettler, young guy who since passed away, we ended up not being able to save him, but he had a aortic aneurysm, and they called Benny and I over when it happened. We took all of our emergency equipment over, and we ended up shocking him and stuff. But unfortunately, when you blow out your aorta, no matter what, it's hard to bring somebody back to life. And he ended up passing away. And I remember, like, it was probably 5 hours later, somebody said the guy's name, and it was like, what? And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know that was the guy that I was working on. Like, it's really? like, and it's been like that even, some of the times where we have to, we have an emergency situation, whether it's, Jamie Hewitt who took the skate across the face or whatever. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's not that I black out, but I just, it's like everything just closes in, and all I can see is the injury, you know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, what I got to do? All right, do this. And it's funny because for me, like, I don't get excited. I actually get the opposite. I get more calm. The more the stressful the situation becomes medically, the more calm I get. And it's funny because, like Jamie Heward, who got that big cut. I was real calm and stuff like that. And then George McPhee walks into the doctor's office, and Jamie took a cut that was pretty significant across his face. It started at his chin, went up, barely missed his eye, thank God, and took out his his eyebrow and everything, and it was kind of hanging up. And George walks in and was like, "Oh my God!" And then like he's like, "That's bad." And Jamie was like, "Wait, I didn't think it was that bad because you were so calm." And I was like, "Yeah, because like, what am I gonna do? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's bad, but I was just always the kind of this." But what were you thinking about, Carl? Because I'd like to.
I was thinking about when Wides had that like innocent looking hit that we thought was a Charlie
shit.
horse.
Oh yeah.
And then he ended up being in the hospital for, it was like 10 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he got a quad contusion that turned into a compartmental syndrome.
Yep.
And like we're seeing this and we're like, whoa, this is bad. And so we ended up, Dr. Schaefer and I decided, we're like, all right, let's just take him to the OR. Let's bite the bullet, because it swelled up so fast and so quick. And they're like, he's got a pretty good bleed in there. So we took him to the OR that night and tried to get the bleed. And then the next morning he puffed up again. And then we ended up having to take him to the OR again. And then we had to, what you do is you basically leave the leg open so it doesn't, because if the pressure builds up because of the swelling, you can lose the limb. So it was pretty kind of an interesting thing. So we ended up being able to take care of that. But yeah, that was interesting. But when I was at Maryland, it was funny because the day I got there, season was already going on and stuff like that. A similar situation. They had 2 trainers that they'd put on administrative leave, and they called me in to do it. I walked in and I saw a kid that presented the exact same way, and I was like, "Hey, you need to take him to the OR." And they were like, "No, it's just quad contusion." I'm like, "No." And they were like, "Yeah, we just, sometimes he needs to get it drained." I was like, "He's got a small bleed in there. Before it gets worse, take him to the OR." And they ended up taking him to it. And I think the guy's playing with the Chargers now, I believe. I have to look that up. But yeah.
Might have saved his leg, Smitty.
What?
You might have saved his leg.
I would hope that they would have caught it by then.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's interesting. I mean, when I was in the minors, I think that probably started me out on this whole thing, because we had a guy that got cut with a skate across his chin, and it was so bad it went up through his lip, and he went to go put his glove on it, and when he did, he hit the chin on top of his nose. So when he came to me, like, I honestly couldn't tell, like it was like, what's going on? It was just all red, and I couldn't understand what was going on. But he hit, the reaction is put some pressure on him. When he did that, because he cut so far underneath of his chin, the actual skin was on his nose. And I was like,
visual.
If this is hockey, I got to get used to this. And I guess I got a little used to it. So, it kind of settled in. But, it's always those. I mean, let's face it, any sport's a dangerous sport. Hockey is a complicated sport that makes it even, sometimes, more likelihood of problems. But, it's just using best judgment and training and trying to figure it out. And we don't always have the answers on the medical side, but Lord knows we try.
Right. We're going to take a break here on All's Caps, and we're going to come back with more Capital stories and, of course, Carl's stupid questions for Greg Smith. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Carl Alsner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and of course, we're joined by longtime Capitals trainer Greg Smith, who had some incredible stories that I remember that Dennis Weidman thing, Smitty, because I remember someone tipped me off like 2 days later. He was still in the hospital, and I didn't believe it. And all of a sudden, you guys announced it before the game or during the game or something. And I'm like, it looked like the most innocuous collision in the world, and then it led to that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes the littlest things, I mean, you don't know what your body's going to do. It's a complicated system. So basically, it was just a little bit, just got him a little bit above the pads. And, once you get a little bleed, and Dennis had some big quads, and it just, went from a little bit to it's not resolving, and oh boy, we better take care of this kind of thing. And he ended up, so what happens is you almost have to open up the compartment of the quad. So the wound lays open for 10 days. And then the pressure just, over that 10 days, you're monitoring the pressure in that, in the leg. And then it took us 10 days before we could really sew him back up. And then you start the rehab process, which is, trying to get that quad that's been laying, muscle belly that's been laying open to the open air for 10 days to work again. So, that was I mean, you want to talk about scary. For me, that's more scary than the actual injuries. Karl is trying to, man, I hope this guy can play. Like, I hope this guy can get back. I hope this guy, you know what I mean, is okay. And, it's just like, if you remember, we had a defenseman called, his name was Brian Pothier, who got a concussion. And like, it took us, God knows, it seemed like it took us 8 years to try to figure out how to make him better. Like, it was like we were trying. I mean, we tried so many different things, and we ended up, of course, with concussions, and everybody says this, like, we're learning about concussions more and more and more every day. I mean, it's just like, I'd use this analogy all the time. When I first started in pro hockey, we had a lot of people that had bruised foot. Okay. Like that just had bone, just had bruises. Well, then we started an MRI and everything. And then everybody had fractured, foot fracture. Well, before it was just a bruise, and now it's a fracture. The injury didn't change. The technology changed to be able to see these micro fractures that the x-rays never picked up. So it's just the technology that changed, and concussions the same way. Before we used to manage concussions, put everybody into a dark room. And now we're like, okay, no, that was, the approach is we got to get them up and exercise it. And there's a lot more that goes on. And in Brian's case, we finally figured out that he had astigmatism in his eye that was caused by the concussion. And we worked with some eye training to be able to get him through that part of it. But that was, back in that time, that was like unheard of. Now it's like, we're doing all these visual trainings, and then it's like, it's on the check sheet now is to look at people's eyes, right? As far as ocular movement and training and stuff like that. So, but I don't know what it was, 12, 15 years ago, maybe even more. I don't know. Time just seems to be flying by, but it's changed.
What's funny about that story is that's the first time I ever met a young defenseman named Karl Olsner, because Pothier was in Hershey rehabbing. And I remember speaking to this young prospect who was talking about Brian, and it was Karl, because I remember the story, and Brian had the glasses now, and it was like you guys had figured out some miracle cure of this. I think it was, I want to say 2011, 2012, something in that range.
I'd have to take your word for it. I can't remember. I can remember all the stuff that happened, but I'll be honest with you. The longer it goes, it seems like it was like yesterday. I mean, I remember when and I think one of the greatest things that Karl's time with the Caps and our time is, we had this whiteboard that was outside of our change room, and we'd have the board of the day. And of course, it wouldn't pass the mustard now in this cancel culture era, but it was epic, that board, and so much fun. Like, oh my God, we had I think that ran for like 2 years, Karl, right? Like it was so
Yeah.
much fun. Like, yeah.
So
Like,
I'll tell you, explain it to you. It was kind of, so someone would come in and they would write like, at the top, it would say, like, for instance, like reasons why Greg Smith can't go to the All-Star game, or things like that. Why Greg Smith isn't allowed to go to a certain restaurant, and then guys would
yeah,
just come up with absolute ridiculous
yeah,
answers on there.
you know, like it would be like, there's no high chairs at the
Yeah.
restaurant. You know what I mean? The table's too high. They don't allow midgets, stuff like that. You know what I mean? They don't have enough food for them. Like it was like terrible, right? But
Yeah.
it was so funny and so creative. It was crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And guys
but
would like try and sneak to the board to write something so no one else saw who it was.
yeah, like guys would remember something skating around during practice, and you just see them like bolt off the ice. We're like, oh, he's got something. And then next thing you know, there would be another thing. And then it got so bad, like sometimes we'd fill up the whole board, and then it would be like arrows to the next board and the arrows to the next board. And we'd fill up 2 or 3 boards, but it was so, like, of course it was at somebody's expense, but it was back in the day where, people weren't as sensitive and everybody got a good laugh out of it. And I think that, you almost kind of wanted a board for yourself, because it was like, man, I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I made
exactly.
You know what I mean? And it was good. It was good.
I remember Snap Bradley. He was hilarious, and you couldn't walk by him without him saying something. And I remember one time, one of my first 2 years there, he said, because he would chirp me about stuff all the time, and he would say, "Hey, if I wasn't talking to you and I wasn't chirping you, that means I probably didn't like you that much." So he's like, it's a good thing if people are saying funny things about you or getting you involved in the conversation. It's because there's a reason why we like you, or we think that you're good enough to take this joke. So I think that's what it was. But was it you, Smitty, that would always take pictures of the board? I think someone always took pictures of it.
No. We're not allowed to take pictures in the locker room at
No,
all.
no, not you.
No.
Not you, Wino. No. It was
Smitty.
inside the room, but I think Smitty did, or somebody did.
Yeah, I might have a couple. Between Woody and I might have a couple. I think the one that I still have, Carl, because I saw it, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, was the one of Eric Fair. Remember the one that we had the things that we had to do to the training staff had to do to Eric Fair to get him to play.
It's so funny you bring this up, because when we had Fairzy on, I told them how he was pretty much held together by tape just to get out.
Oh my God, it was bad. So Wino, I used to have a rule, and it was funny because I thought about this rule the other day when I was in with the Washington Football Club, because the rule couldn't apply because some of those guys were a little bit more banged up. But I had a rule that you could be hurt, but you can only be hurt on 3. You had to pick top 3. Okay. And if you had 4 different things going on, you just didn't play. 3 you could play, but somehow I came up with this rule a long time ago. I'm like, all right, well, you got to pick 3. So Eric Fair would literally come into my room and he's like, all right, I got 5 or 6 things going on. What am I going to pick on? There was one time, he tried to convince me. He had a hot pack on both shoulders, both knees, and had it on both groins. Okay. And I'm like, Eric, that's, you can't have that. You know what I mean? That's 6 things. And he's like, no, Smitty, I'm telling you, it's 3 things: knees, groins, shoulders. And I'm like, that doesn't work. So then we had to take it to kangaroo court to see if he qualified for it. And he was all discombobulated, you know what I mean? Back then, right, we'd only have 12 hot packs. So for him to take 6 hot packs, half of them just to get him ready, you know what I mean? It was crazy.
Who was more banged up, Fairzy or Boyd Gordon?
Oh, Gordo was way banged up. Way
Yeah,
banged
he
up.
was bad. He
He
was
was bad.
absolutely mangled. His,
You know,
well, I know
you,
his travel. You remember his travel routine?
oh yeah. Yeah,
He
yeah.
he he had to come on the plane with a rolled up, like one of those thick yoga mats and his own pillow, and he wouldn't even sleep in the hotel bed. He would sleep on
Yeah.
the floor on his yoga mat with his legs elevated because his back would be too messed up to play the next day.
Yeah. So Wino, and I take no credit for messing him up, but he came in so jacked up. It took us, I want to say 5 years to get him to sleep in a hotel bed.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, but like, so what did you do to let him do that?
Would
Like,
let him
like, like,
sleep on the floor?
no, I mean, no, I was gonna say,
Zero.
how did you fix it?
Oh, I mean, Carl Osner would tell you, but I would beat him silly. Like I would drive my elbow into his back and hip flexors. He was just so tight everywhere. I mean, it was bad. Like it was bad. I'm like, and every day he'd come in. I'm like, Gorda, how you feel? He's like, and you know, one day I'll tell you this comment because Gorda was the funniest kid ever. He just so like monotone. I said, Gorda, how you feeling? He goes, well, I feel pretty good. It could have been worse. You know, I could have been lying in a ditch, you know, being accosted by some meth head, but you know, I'm at the rink, you know, and that was just Gordo. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right, but I think there wasn't a day over his 5 years where I didn't work on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really get
That's
in.
wild.
But it took a while because unfortunately, you know, he played a lot of hockey in juniors and in the minors and stuff like that. And you know, you get a little bit out of whack, and then you just keep on adding to that problem. It's like when Brooks Orpik first came to us with the Caps. His first year with us, and I was like, "All right, Brooksy, I mean, you're done. You can't work out." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Dude, we need you to atrophy." He was so tight and so big and so massive. I was like, "You're never going to be able to play unless you work on other things." And I remembered he's like, you know, like kind of pushed back a little bit. And then the first summer that we had him, I was like, okay, remember, no working out, you know, do yoga, do something. And he ended up doing that. And he felt better the next day. And then, you know, the next season, you know, when he came in, because he wasn't as atrophied, you know, and he really worked on it. And I had a similar experience with Paul Correa because he was all jacked up when I first got to Anaheim. And I remember I was like, Paul, like, you know, he got a concussion and he was out for a year. Suter hit him across the jaw and took him out. So I was like, I used that opportunity to really get him into stretching and working on some other things. And he ended up getting stronger because his lever arm, you know, his range of motion was so much better that he had more power. And he ended up, you know, he felt better and played better. And that kind of gave me that thing like, okay, you know what, we got to work on this flexibility and not be so tight. So, you know, it was good to see that with Gordo. Gordo was really tight, but he was a lot of work to get going. He was a lot of work, but man, did he compete. And then you know, add the fact that, you know, on the penalty kill, I mean, between him and Karl, I mean, I don't think the puck, when those two guys were on the ice, I don't think the goalie had to make a save during the penalty kill because one of them was going to block it. You know, if Gordo didn't block it, you know what I mean? Karl was going to block it. I mean, you guys had the most amount of block shots ever. And of course, you know, they both would have the same reaction. They come to the bench and I'd be like, Ozzy, how's it? Yeah, that one's going to sting. You know what I mean? I'll be all right. You know,
Yeah.
and Gordo would just come to the bench sometimes and he'd be in so much pain. You know, he'd block one off his foot and he'd just walk by me and it's like, don't say a fucking word. I'm just going for a walk. I'll be back. And he'd walk down the tunnel. And the coach would be like, Smitty, go after and see him. Go. I'm like, no, I ain't going to see how he is. He'll be back. He's fine. He'll be back. And he'd just go walk it off. And you know what I mean? would be back at it, So
Oh,
it
it's
was good.
amazing.
You
And
hockey
let
players, man.
alone let alone Gordo would come back and mumble to himself for like the next 10 minutes. You know what I mean? He'd just talk to himself and yell at himself. So it was a lot different.
That's so good. So Wino, should we get into these questions here?
Yeah, let's go with Carl's stupid questions.
All right, Smitty, I'll give you a quick rundown if you don't know how this works. I got 6 questions for you, and they are completely random, and each one will earn you a certain amount of points. And at the end, I'll tally those points up, and I'll give you a score, and you'll go on our ranking board here. We've got about 10 other guys that have done it, and we'll see how good you do. And
Well,
I
who's the
basically-
highest? Who can I beat?
Greg Wyshynski last week, I think he got like 274 or something like that.
Good God.
So the
Yeah, your
next
scoring
closest-
system's changed a little bit.
Well, I mean, Greg,
You're
he
just
knocked
giving
it out.
away points. You're just
He
giving
knocked it
away
out.
points.
Well, I am now. When your answers were as good as his, but before that, the highest was Fairzy at 107, and so
He
so
probably
last week
cheated though.
he made me laugh a little bit, so I gave him some points. but
What
we'll
did he
see.
do? Take off his shirt?
he was telling us about how he was how Rachel pretty much has to do everything for him at the house, and he doesn't put his dishes away, and we didn't really want to get all
He's
about
so
it.
high maintenance. Like the guy is terrible. Like poor girl. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's a saint for sure. Okay. Number 1, what's your go-to breakfast?
Bacon and eggs, especially at the rink, because Rob the chef made unbelievable bacon.
Yes, really good bacon. I was definitely agree with you there. What kind of what style of eggs do you prefer though?
Oh, scrambled, of course.
Scrambled always, gotcha.
Yeah.
Scrambled soft or scrambled hard?
Scrambled hard, and unlike a Canadian, because I still don't understand this being around you guys so long, don't put ketchup on it. Like
I'm
I
with you,
just don't
Smitty. I'm with
understand
you.
it.
I don't get
like
it.
I just don't get it.
I don't
Like
get it.
why do they do that? Like did they have nothing else? Like that was
Well-
the only fruit and vegetable that they had up there was ketchup. I
We
could
wanted to-
understand maple syrup. I can understand it. Who doesn't like maple syrup?
Of course.
But ketchup? Why do Canadians put ketchup on eggs? Don't understand that.
We wanted to add a couple lines to it, just like our flag. Makes us think of home.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Blood, sweat, and tears. I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Next, what would be your perfect Saturday? Do whatever you want, wherever you want. What would you want to do?
Perfect Saturday is right now. I'm restoring old furniture. So my
Yes.
brother and I, so COVID happened, right? And as anybody who knows me, I'm I'm crazy, right? Like I'm nuts because, I work for the NHL hockey team, and then my just for fun, I decided to own this physical therapy company, and and I worked there part-time running a business. And when we sold in 2014, we had 50 locations and we had like 1,000 employees working for me, as my sideline gigs, because I didn't have enough to do working for the Caps. I decided to do this. So COVID was really, really tough for me because I was at home and I was going crazy. So I painted like 9 rooms in my house, and I totally fixed up my house to the point where I put it on the market and sold it. And because I was building another house, so I was like, I might as well sell it. It's as good as it's going to be. I have nothing else to do. And my brother and I are 13 months apart. And literally, I think for like 25, 30 years, we might have talked like maybe 6 times besides Christmas and Thanksgiving. We weren't that close, right? But I started redoing some furniture, like just finding old furniture. I like doing some woodwork and messing around. And we started doing that. And now we're fixing furniture, doing shows. Him and I talk probably 3 times he just actually sent me a text while we're on the call here about a piece that's in McLean, Virginia that he wants me to pick up today. So that's what I guess I'll be doing this afternoon, picking up some vintage desks today and do that. But I'd love to sit around and get the saws out and the planer out and fix some stuff. And I like it because it's a sense of accomplishment. I can, and I like staying busy and it gives me something to do. I cannot sit on the couch. Like my wife, like she hates me, like, cause I can't watch a movie, and she's like, you can't put down your phone. And I'm like, well, I got to do two things at once. Like I can't just do like who can do one thing? I don't know who can do one thing. Like I can't do that. If I stop to do one thing, I fall asleep. Right. Like, so I can do one thing, sleep. I got that down. But if I stop to do one thing, so my ideal Saturday for sure would be fixing up furniture, and your listeners can follow us on Instagram on 13 Mobros, which is our Instagram, and we've been doing this a little bit over a year now, and it's kind of fun, and I love it because we take old stuff and we bring it back to life, and it's funny because we were finding a lot of people have taken these really cool old vintage pieces that used to be in somebody's houses, and then they became the garage cabinets. Then my brother and I rescued them from somebody's garage, and then we fix them up, and then we put them back into people's houses. So it's like the circle of life, you know what I mean? Like we're bringing things back to life, but it's been real fun. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at making cabinet drawers and fixing stuff and repurposing stuff. So it's kind of like a little hobby. I've always liked it, but it allows me to do a little creative stuff.
Yes,
absolutely.
The multitasking thing, I feel the same way, and that's why like going to a movie theater is so hard because you're not allowed to do two things at once. You got to like focus on a movie and not do another thing. How would you do that?
Why not? You buy a big thing of popcorn. Like, hello.
Oh, so that's your two things. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
like, you know what I mean? If not, like, what are you gonna do? Like, I never go, to the movies after I go to dinner. I always go to dinner after the movie because I know that I got to do something, eat during the movie.
The movie theaters with the beer has been like a revolution. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. That's why I kind of enjoy this whole Netflix thing because I've been watching a ton of movies, but I just wait a couple months when they're at home. So it works out kind of nice.
And I'll say too, you were the king of being able to you dig an elbow into someone's glute while sending an email. Always very impressive to see how you can do that.
Yeah, you know what? It's well, that was a whole multitasking thing. I would still be able to work and treat the guys and do stuff. So, unfortunately, you got to stay busy.
Yes, you do. All right, next we'll go with who would you say the funniest person you've worked with, either a player or another colleague?
Okay, so the funniest person, and it is a twofold thing. The funniest person, all in general, to have a good time with has to be Curdy, right? Our massage therapist. like the guy was hilarious. Most of the time at his own expense, but he's a generally good guy, you know what I mean? Like, but he was just funny. He had a good personality and he loved to joke around. He loved to give it and take it. But it was so fun because he was one of those guys that, was so kind-hearted and loving, but you could joke around with him and he could take a joke and give a joke and stuff like that. And those people are hard to find and stuff like that. But, sense of humor, be honest with you, Kuzi has like the greatest sense of humor, but it's one-on-one humor because he doesn't feel comfortable because he doesn't know how to translate those words into English. Right. He has a problem, kind of giving that, but he is so far the funniest guy. So I'll tell you this because I don't think he'll mind me telling you this, but Kuzi and he sends me Instagram videos all the time, right? And I got to be politically correct. It's all Instagram videos of little people, right? because 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 so back when I used to be there and Benny used to be there, Benny and I would fight Kuzi and Orland. Like if Kuzi was in the stick room by himself, Benny and I would go jump him and fight him. And then all of a sudden, like Orly would come out of nowhere, and then we'd all be battling, right? You know, it'd be Benny and I against the, you know. So we started sneaking up on each other, right? And it got kind of funny, you know, right? It got bad because, you know, like they would wait for Benny and I after practice, like behind our cars, and fucking jump out after us. You know what I mean? Like it was like, you know what I mean? Like it would be funny, like, you know, like we'd see them like in a hotel, and we'd try to sneak behind the plants in the hotel to jump them in the hotel room. So it got kind of funny. So Kuzi and I always, yeah, and Orly always had a good relationship. But now Kuzi, every time he sees a funny Instagram video of a short person, a shorter statured person, he sends it to me. You know what I mean? So you know, we've been sending short people back, and so I think Kuzi as a player, for sure, the funniest guy. But it's kind of like he enjoys life, but he's got a good sense of humor on that one. But by far, Curdy as a co-worker, Curdy was awesome. I mean, you know what I mean? And it was just, you know, it was just fun because he was lighthearted. You could make fun of him, and he would take it with his punches and try to give it out. And I think that was the greatest part about it.
Yeah, so Curtis Millar, massage therapist for a long time. He ended up being the butt of a lot of jokes, a lot of shoe checks, and those whiteboards you were talking about, a lot of them revolved around Curdy. So yeah, I agree. He was amazing. He's one of those guys that can really take it. So it was fun to have him.
And when Curdy retired, it was probably the saddest part, but you know, also too, I was happy because HR didn't come after me, so it was pretty good.
Oh man,
we used to remember we used to do the face in the hole, like they put people's faces on different pictures. Yeah. Okay,
so
go.
Good.
Sorry.
Okay, next one. I wanted to ask you this, and I've been asking it a fair bit lately, but I feel like you're a really good candidate for this question, and it might be annoying for some people, but sorry. Do you consider a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah, of course.
You do consider it a sandwich, okay?
Yeah. Here's why.
Yes, please.
I mean, because it has the elements of a sandwich, right? You know what you got to see. That's where I think the sandwich have gotten too broad, right? You know what I mean? Like a sandwich is just basically two pieces of bread with something in between, right? Whether it's peanut butter and jelly or whatever. So anything that's in between two pieces of bread is a sandwich, you know. And that's why for me, a jelly donut is considered a sandwich, because ideally that's that. I mean, Carl, if you think about it, right? You know, I love donuts, right? I mean, Wino, there'd be never a time where we were in Canada that Carl wouldn't bring in donuts. Him and Chimmer would bring in donuts for the training staff. Now, that was a cover for them because they would bring it in for the training staff. And of course, they were in my room. Don't get me wrong. I had my share of donuts, but it was always a sham because every time they'd walk by, they'd just pop in a Timbit. Well, just one more. So I think there was the cover, you know. So in case the coach says, what are you doing with these donuts? Oh, they're for the trainers. Oh, okay. You know, no problem. But they had their fair share too. So, but yeah, a jelly donut could be considered, you know, because it's in between two pieces of, you know what I mean, bread type stuff, right? So think about it.
Okay, so then think about this, because this was brought to my attention. Just considering the construction of a hot dog, could it be considered more like a taco, or would a taco then be considered a sandwich? Because it's very similar. It's meat toppings in between some sort of shell, I guess.
Yeah, but see, the air is the key factor, right? So on a tortilla, you don't have any air in between it. On a hard corn shell, you don't have any air. So the bread has to have air has to have a little pocket of squishiness. So that's where it becomes the difference.
So
Right?
squishiness.
It has
Okay.
that's the key element to that is the squishiness. That's why the jelly donut is key, because it's a little squishy.
Well, I would argue that a hot dog is more along the lines of a sub, like a submarine sandwich, than just a regular sandwich.
Well,
I'd say that's a
but you
subcategory.
no, yeah, but you just finished it with so sub is the subcategory of the sandwich.
Yeah,
Submarine
I'm
sandwich.
not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Hey,
I'm just bringing in
I
a
mean,
different element here. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say hot dog is its completely own category, doesn't qualify as a sandwich, and some people will go ahead and say sandwich. So this is why this is a never-ending question right here. Is
I
everyone's got a
know,
different opinion.
I know, but I mean, but as you know, mine is always right. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like I would have to say it is, and
Okay.
that's what I'm going to stand by.
Okay, gotcha.
Whether I
Perfect.
get good points or bad points, I don't care.
The reason, the way you get points on that is to have a discussion about it, and you had
It's
a discussion
principle.
about it.
It's
Yes.
principle.
And you brought in something new, a donut being considered a sandwich. That's
It could
something
be.
to think about. Could be.
Yeah, could be.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think you kind of answered this one earlier for us, but I'll give it to you one more time just to get it officially recorded. Who was on the massage table the most?
The most on Curdy's table. See, that's the other
Okay,
key thing, right?
true. Very true.
Right?
Who was the salt and pepper shaker? Who was on, let's go with Curdy's table the most that you can remember.
By far, Adam Oates.
Really?
Swear to God, most high maintenance guy ever. He would walk in and he would snap his fingers. Curdy shaved his head. Okay. He'd be like, he'd walk in the room, snap his finger, cue ball, let's go. Every day after practice. Every day after practice.
Was he like that as a coach too?
So,
That's so good.
Adam liked the finer things in life. How about that way? Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam liked the finer things in life. I mean, Yags was pretty high maintenance too. You know what I mean? Like, he'd have Curdy rub his legs in between periods. Remember, he'd be laying in the stall and he'd have Curdy rub his legs. Were you there with Yags?
No, but I've heard a bunch of
Right
stories.
before. Oh my God. In between periods, he would have him rub his legs. He'd just lay there. You know what I mean? In his stall, and Curdy would have to rub his legs in between his stall. So yeah. So I mean, back in the day, that was it. And then the problem is once Matt Bradley came in, you know what I mean? Nobody wanted to be on Curdy's massage table, and you know why too, Carl. So
Yeah.
if you want to share this is your podcast, you share it, but I'm not sharing that one.
We have to get Brad's blessing first. Maybe we can get him on at some point.
Yeah.
He
So
can
ask
explain it.
when you get Brad's on, ask him why nobody wanted to be on the massage table when he was around.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Last one for you. And, tough question because we know how busy you are, but if you were to retire and not do anything, where would you retire?
Since I'm building my retirement home in Stevensville on the Chesapeake Bay, that's what I'm going to go with for 5,000 points. Because here's the deal. I bought this house on the Chesapeake Bay. It faces east, so I could see the sunsets, not the sunrise, right? And sorry, it faces west.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I wanted to see the sunset. And because when I retire, there's no way in hell I'm getting up early enough to see the sun come up, but I guarantee you I can stay awake until the sun goes down. So that's why I chose that house, that location. I've always liked the water because I think the water is calming and stuff like that. who knows when I retire, because I mean, Carl, you know me, I'm never going to retire. I mean,
Yeah.
I've basically, I've retired from the Caps in 2007. I went to Maryland for a little bit. I went into the NBA G League bubble for a little bit. I've been with the Washington Football Club for a little bit. I mean, who knows? I mean, phone might ring tomorrow and I'll be out of here and working with some other team or something. Short-term
Yeah.
basis, short-term,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
who knows? Who knows?
Just
Yeah.
a dabbler. All
Yeah,
right.
dabbler.
Yeah. So, okay, that's okay. I like that. Let's add this and times 2 plus 4. Okay, you are at a total of 107 points.
Oh, 107.
107, which actually ties you with Eric Fair. There you go.
See, that's all I wanted to do. I
Nice.
mean, you know what I mean? He'll be jockeying for position. I think I'm going to text him and tell him that, just
Yes,
to
let
let
him
him know that for once we're tied, and he'll be on the show tomorrow to try to beat it.
Hey, it's just got to be natural, man.
He would be our first repeat guest if that happened.
Yeah,
Yes, he
well,
would.
he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, he sure does. We didn't get Fairzy going. It's always a fun time.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
silly
yeah,
laugh of his.
For sure. Sure.
Gentlemen, this has been a blast today. Greg Smith, thank you very much for joining us on Caps.
Thanks, Smitty.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Carl, good to see you. I heard that you're going to go out with Benny, so make sure I get the invite.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Tomorrow. Come on down. Actually, you're
What is
coming
it
to
tomorrow?
McLean today. Coming to McLean today. You got to come and say hi.
All right. Well, let's hook up soon.
All right. Sounds
Wino,
good.
good seeing you.
Good seeing
I'll
you,
talk to you guys soon.
and glad we didn't have to watch you run on the field in Ashburn or FedEx Field at any point. And
Listen, the football field is, first of all, I don't run too well. And no, I didn't want to do that one. So for sure.
And best of luck in whatever retirement looks like for you. Thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next week on Caps.